We are about to start our meeting today, and as usual, we start with our message from the book Opening Doors Within. Many souls are seeking an answer to all the chaos and confusion in the world at this time. Day by day, it grows worse, but be not afraid, for things will have to get worse before they can get better. A boil comes to a heat before it bursts, and then all the poisons are released and are cleared away. Things have to come to a head in the world before the poisons of hate, greed, jealousy, and selfishness are released and healing can take place. I need you at perfect peace within. You will find it as you keep your mind stayed on me and can raise your consciousness, seeing only the very best. You cannot help the world situation if you allow yourself to become involved in it. You have to be immune to the disease, or you too will contact it. And then you can be of no help whatsoever. I need your help. I need you free. I need you at perfect peace. Then I can use you.
God, our Father of love, thank you for the opportunity of being gathered together once again in this Spirit Center in order to study your laws that enlighten ourselves for how should we behave, laws that help us to understand our purpose as an immortal beings, our sons and daughters of God. Laws that help us to understand our purpose of being here on earth, reincarnate once again, to learn and to live according to God's laws, helping us to understand how to develop the virtues within us, values, important values that just us can conquer. Benefactors who are responsible for this meeting, we ask your permission to start the studies today, involved and embraced with the lights and the blessings of love from our Master Jesus, involving all of us here, incarnates and discarnates, presenting this meeting today. So be it.
Welcome all of us here, beings incarnate, and all of those in the spiritual world who are also here, have been brought by the benefactors, have been attracted by this purpose that we are studying here as immortal beings, as children of God, who are learning within the Spirit's book, as children as we all are in evolution. May we start our study, our meeting, by expressing our gratitude to God, who through His love loves us all and grants us this unique possibility for us to carry on studying, reflecting, and understanding ourselves and the experiences that we are undergoing within the natural laws in the universe. And we are within the chapter Moral Perfection, which we have been studying for quite some time. And today we start a new sub-item, which is entitled Self-Knowledge. Before we start the question 919, which starts this sub-item, let's reflect what do we as immortal beings in this stage of our evolution understand about self-knowledge. What comes to our minds? What is self-knowledge referring to? What comes to our minds?
Is having the capacity to self-reflect, to think about our actions and to know our weaknesses and our strengths.
Okay, what else? There are two words in one, self and knowledge. Self means
About us.
self means us, referring back to us. Knowledge, what comes to our minds when we hear the word knowledge? Awareness, understanding who we are as unique beings in the universe, yeah, from let's say transpersonal perspective, which means that we are three-dimensional beings while we are on earth, because essentially we are spirits, we have a perispirit, and we express ourselves through the physical body, yes, but the self-knowledge is within this three-dimensional way of being. Okay, anything else? Self-knowledge apart from what has been said. It's really helping us to understand as spirits as we are, as children of God, and how we have been throughout centuries and centuries interacting within the natural law, which is God's law, and what can we learn about us, although we are not aware on the intellectual memory what we did and where we are coming from, but through self-knowledge we can perceive quite a lot in terms of internal tendencies, which helps us also more or less or briefly to have an idea of the causes of our tendencies of today. Okay? So we start then on question now 919. The question is, what is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draws of evil? If you reflect on the question first, how do we understand the question today? Because we are all under the law of evolution, and as the days go by, we are evolving, our thinking evolves. But today, what comes to our mind when we read the question? How could we frame it within our own words, which could also help others while studying with us? What is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draw of evil? How could we reframe the question? In which way could we express our thinking?
In what way can I become better?
Okay, in what way could I become better as a mortal being? Because when they say improving ourselves in this life, that is an important aspect for us to reflect. That means that we are already going through different existences. We have one life, but different existences. But how can we improve ourselves in this existence? And how can we learn to resist weaknesses? Is that right? Because when they say, and for resisting the draws of evil, means our weaknesses, yeah? And then we have the short answer from Socrates, which says, a sage of antiquity has told you, know thyself. Now, how do we understand Socrates' answer? So in which effective way can we improve ourselves as immortal beings in this existence and also learn to resist our bad tendencies? What do we understand? To know thyself. What comes to our minds?
The only way to make improvements is to acknowledge what needs to be improved. If I don't know ourselves, and if we let selfishness or pride get in the way, we might not be able to improve anything.
Okay.
Because I might have shadows that I might not be aware of them. I might not be humble enough to admit that I have them. So when I get engaged in this process of knowing myself, of having more awareness and self-knowledge, then it's the way to become better, to improve.
Okay, and how can we exercise to know ourselves? Is that a process?
Yes.
How can we do that? It may be different for different of us, but how could we exercise that?
I think there are many ways. There are obviously self-reflection studies, or even help search for help, professional help. I think it's needed in most or all cases. But I think yes, I think it's important to find a way or to find a strategy to cope with and to be able to find to know ourselves better.
Okay. Where would we start this process? Of course, when it's within. Yes, I know. But where? But where? Think about if we are in our own process, where do we start? What needs to happen first?
I need to desire to do it.
I need to be willing to look within myself. Because if I don't start with that point, I will not realize what's going on and I will be blinded by my unconscious patterns. So there is the need to be willing to get to know who I am, because there is an opening on our internal being. To be willing, to be wishing, really to get to know how I function, what I bring as tendencies from my previous experiences, and then choose to, in a responsible way, as we always say, to analyze them if they are in accord with what we are studying presently or not, according to our understanding. Then again, be willing to change. Yes? And how often can we do that? Once a month? Once a year? A lot of people do it once a year, isn't it? The end of the year. New Year's resolution, we have that saying. Does it work? The rest of the year we don't care. We just carry on automatic pilot. It will not work. So how often can we exercise ourselves? All the time. All the time. It is a practice. As more as we practice, as more as we become conscious, as more as we are aware, all the time is better, because then we are more, let's say, aware of what is already on our unconscious mind, and therefore we have greater chances to also work on it as we perceive it. Okay, anything else that comes to our minds? What do we understand in relation to resisting evil? Switch on that. What do we understand about resisting evil? What is evil? What do we understand about evil?
Is it our weaknesses?
Our weaknesses, our weaknesses, our shadows, our imperfections, our limitations. And now, what do we understand resisting the shadows or weaknesses or limitations or imperfection? How do we do that? How do we resist the evil?
I think we learn here with Kardec is through the process of self-education. So I was thinking when Annette was explaining in one of the explanations she did about the Lord's Prayer, in the end when Jesus says, "Let us not be into temptation," she was explaining what temptation is and the importance of us to get engaged in this process of creating strategies to deal with the weaknesses we have and we are already aware, and how to not just let it happen.
Just have pleasure within them.
Yes.
Yes. Just to overcome them. Be aware, not having no longer pleasure in sustaining them, but choosing freely through the development of morality to resist them. And how do we do that? Exercising the strengths, exercising the virtues. Because if you don't do anything, we already are reinforcing the old system, isn't it? Okay. Okay, then let's move on to question 919a, which says, we comprehend all the wisdom of that maxim, but the difficulty is precisely in knowing ourselves. By what means can we do so? So this question is extending the previous one, isn't it? And what is different in this question regarding the previous one? How is this question coming to us? We comprehend all the wisdom of that maxim, but the difficulty, the maxim is know thyself, yeah? But the difficulty is precisely in knowing ourselves. Why is it difficult? Why is it difficult? An idea? What is it difficult?
I really think
Yes, it
it is because of selfishness and pride. Sometimes it's so difficult to admit the weaknesses.
Mm.
I think because of the selfishness and pride, but it's easier said. So how can it be done?
Okay, so we would be saying is pride and selfishness, yes? Okay, the basic routine is pride and selfishness, and of course all the different mechanisms from those two vices. But now, how do we, by what means can we do so? So we comprehend all the wisdom of that maxim to know thyself, but the difficulty is precisely in knowing ourselves, because we find pleasure in feeding us through pride and selfishness, isn't it? And then they say, by what means can we do so to know ourselves? If you know already cognitively that is pride and selfishness, so what do we do now then? How do we depart from that understanding? What can we do next? What is possible for us?
After acknowledging start acting in a different way.
Mhm.
If we don't start, even if it's difficult in the beginning, the change will never happen. Because the changing the feelings is a result of many actions or a long time in this new pattern of behavior.
Okay, so we know it cognitively that, or the difficulty is precisely knowing ourselves through the pride and selfishness, which is still is quite high within us. But we, on the other side, we have never been better as we are in this moment in our existence, in our journey, but still is quite high. And then now we choose to gradually exercise ourselves within what is the opposite of pride and selfishness? Within what we need to train. Humbleness and charity, isn't it? That in that way we are overcoming our own limitations. And we do it for ourselves because we understand better and better what we are conditioning ourselves on daily basis in every moment and every second. Okay? And how is the best way to get to know ourselves? What is the best way to get to know ourselves? Any idea? What? Sorry? Through the resistances, yes. We could also say through the law of society, where we are interacting with each other, because the others are our mirrors, where we are. Of course, through pride and selfishness, we always think it is because of the other, but it is a way that we can perceive ourselves. The others are our own mirrors that sometimes we are not knowing. So know thyself, that will be one of the means, or observing our resistances too. Because again, the resistance comes from the ego state of mind, which is based on pride and selfishness. Okay. Any other idea? So wherever we are, either in society, either in a family setting, that is a good way for us to be constantly observing ourselves and also choosing to rescue ourselves. Because if you don't do anything about it, we are just reinforcing it. So now that answer is quite long. We go through gradually. We start by the first paragraph. To what I used to do when I was living on earth. Do what I used to do when I was living on earth. This answer is from St. Augustine. Okay, it's quite long, we go through. At the end of each day, I examined my conscience, revived what I had done, and asked myself whether or not I had failed to fulfill some duty and whether or not anyone might have had reason to complain about me. It was thus that I arrived at knowing myself and at seeing what there was in me that needed to be transformed. So what do we learn by St. Augustine through this first paragraph of the answer from the question 919a? What would be our reflections here, as learners as we all are? An idea?
Evaluating how this question, or not anyone might have had reason to complain about me, How can we reflect on this question but in a healthy way?
How do you do it in an unhealthy way?
Because I might be obsessed with what everyone is thinking, and then
And then I may get stuck. Of course, that's not healthy. Or, depending where we are internally, we also may see that, of course, I have people who complain about me because in the stage where I am, is impossible not to have anyone who complain. That would be self-obsession. That is outside of reality in the stage where we are. So the question is to observe honestly, and again, we need to study and then reflect with sincerity, and that is a gradual process that we overcome pride and selfishness, because otherwise we have resources on the ego state of mind, which are our illusions that which may impede us to see sincerely. But in relation to having no one to complain about us, unless we have sense on us. But that is not possible. Because even Jesus Christ, who is our master, suffered. But we all have mistakes. We still do mistakes. We still have imperfections. So what do I need to observe? Observe my shadows, my limitations with sincerity, and put the efforts into to overcome them gradually. Is that making sense?
I was just going to ask, what about someone who's driven to make no one complain about it? Is there an issue there?
If no one,
If someone is driven to make sure no one complains about them, do they have an issue?
I think they do. I think they maybe have an issue around perfection. Again, we would come back probably on pride and selfishness. Because there is the difficulty of accepting the reality where we are. We are beings of goodness who are imperfect, perfecting ourselves. So if I make sure that I don't have anyone who will be saying anything about bad to me, that means that I'm trying to reinforce probably my pattern of people pleasing, which comes from my neediness, and then are not in accordance of my master or God or the creator. Because usually we have, through low self-esteem or pride or whatever it is, we may be more drawn to do things to please people and not to please God. Is that making sense? Of course, on the other hand, we also need to be constantly be willing to improve ourselves that we get better, but have the internal drive to do everything, not to have any complaints about myself. That doesn't seem healthy because it's quite impossible for us. Is that making sense? Or is anyone on earth who is possible already to behave in such a way that we don't have any complaint about anyone? Is that possible? No. So again, we need to come back to us and observe ourselves more in a loving way, and of course, realizing our own shadows, be willing to work on them gradually more and more. We may be less vulnerable and less causing others to complain about us, but not in a way that no one has anything to say about us. We can even be a very good person, and still there are people who don't like us, people who hate us. If you take Chic Xavier, for instance, Divaldo Franco, these people who dedicate their lives sometimes for community and humanity, but when they are in a society, not everyone is pleased with that. Is that making sense? So we cannot limit ourselves because of others, but we are invited to transcend our own limits through self-knowledge, self-acceptance, self-transformation that we choose to become better day by day. Is that making sense? Anything else? Are you okay, Cynthia?
yes, I was just trying to understand the rationale behind what we said to see what way can I apply to my daily life but in a constructive way. And I thought if I don't know, let's say I don't know anything about me, just hearing what people have to say and reflect, does it make sense? Is there anything we can improve? Could be a start.
Could do, and also study as we do. Because if we don't study, we will not know the natural laws. Then we may follow what people say, but people come from where they are. And they may also be right or not. So as more as we study and we incorporate that within our new belief systems, we also, and change the emotional dimension, we also increase our discernment. Is that making sense? Which is a great virtue, where we also are learning to observe ourselves, what is wrong, what is bad, or what other people may say or not, and what we do with that. If you take very negative, it's because the pride and selfishness is very big within us. We're pretty sure that we have that we have certainty. But if you can take it in a more healthier way, bring the focus back and bring the focus back on our adult being, which we are developing gradually, then we can listen feedbacks, but we are not affected by it because we also need to discern. We can always learn. Is that making sense? Without allowing ourselves to get in the negative loop. Because the pride usually refers to the victimization, and the victimization leads me to the lack of responsibility which I didn't take so far, or little. Does that make sense? So when we get out of the victimization and we take responsibility of what we think and feel, then we can always empower ourselves because we know we can change ourselves, but we cannot change others. Is that clear? Okay, so move on to the next paragraph here then. We are in the same question. Those who every night would recall all their actions during the day and would ask themselves what good or wrong they have done, praying to God and their guardian angel to enlighten them, would acquire great strength for self-improvement because, believe me, God will assist them. What comes through this paragraph? What is the major recommendation for us as students that we could apply in our process of self-knowledge? Any idea? What comes to our minds?
Being able to look at yourself as a quality, and it has an effect. So just turning around and looking at what is going on in your daily activities allows something to be seen which wasn't seen in that moment.
Okay.
That could change.
So every night would be right and saying, because sometimes we are so in a rushing move throughout the day, and also sometimes be affected or be interacting on the emotional level in the experiences at night. We may be more detached from that, more in the rational mind. You can perceive that how we interact is not where we want to be, and then we can change that in the way that we think and analyze in preparing ourselves for the next day to engage in a different way. Okay. What else is coming to us? What is the other aspect that is important in this paragraph here that St. Augustine is suggesting to us?
Would that be prayer and asking for strength?
Why is prayer so relevant and so important for self-knowledge, as a mechanism for self-knowledge?
I think prayer, for me at least, when I pray, is a way for me to come down and be able to think clearly, especially when I am rushed into something. But it is the moment that even if it is for like a few minutes, I can just stop for a bit.
Prayer, for sure. That is one aspect. Other aspects that prayer favors us in self-knowledge. Are they? Could it be right in saying also that helps us as much as we choose to pray, we elevate ourselves cognitively instead of being in a negative loop? And what happens when we elevate ourselves cognitively? What happens? The answer isn't here. What happens?
We got strength. We are more likely because we are constantly being influenced.
Yes.
So we are more likely to be influenced by the ones who want to help us.
Precisely. We choose to be connected with them. We open up because we are constantly influenced, as you rightly said, either by those who don't want us to progress or those who want us to progress. So when the choice, the initiative comes from us through prayer, is opening our channel to connect with our benefactors. And that way we clear our minds better and we quicker, let's say, can reconnect with the center and choose to carry on in a different way, in a better way.
What about someone who doesn't pray, but reflects on their actions? Is their goodness any less than someone who prays?
I think as long as prayer, it depends what we understand about prayer, because prayer can be perceived or understood in very different ways. One of them could be meditation. One of them could be reflections, as you said. One of them could be choosing to educate and sustain our mental level in positive thinking, in goodness. That is also praying. So reflecting on a daily basis where I am, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, where I want to be in terms of improving myself, that is also a way that you or us are opening our psychic towards the benefactors, the dear friends in spiritual reality that are helping us, to inspire us, to enlighten our minds, for us to move forward and also to elevate ourselves more. Because when we think and feel and we are really wishing to improve ourselves, that it could also be seen, perceived as a prayer aspect. Yeah? When we are on daily basis sincerely engaging in doing goodness, that is also a way of praying. Because in order to engage with that, we need to open our minds and hearts, isn't it? So again.
Good thoughts and good feelings, they are praying.
Yes.
Is an example of praying.
Yes.
So a good thoughts towards someone else is an example of prayer. It's not only be like on your knees in a specific place.
Mm-hmm. Is that okay? Yeah. Then we move on to the next paragraph now. It's still St. Augustine, which is teaching to us. Therefore, ask yourselves about what you have done, and towards what aim you acted in a particular circumstance, whether you have done anything that you would blame in others, and whether you have done anything that you would not dare profess. So now, as we carry on developing our thinking in relation to self-knowledge, what do we learn through this paragraph now?
First, he wants to reflect about the actions, now the intentions.
Okay.
And the action.
Good.
He's going deeper.
Precisely. Here, really, between lines, we can read that he is helping us to reflect regarding our intentions. How do we become aware of our intentions? Because St. Augustine is helping us to become more self-aware. How do we do that? How do we observe? How do we become aware of our intentions? An idea?
I think what you said previously, come back to our own thoughts and try to acknowledge our thoughts and feelings.
So it's really observing or reflecting, as our friend said, or meditating, whatever word we may say, about our thinking and feeling. And then reflect if that is in accordance of what is good, and good means what is good for me and what is good for others, and it's not just for me. And then if not, we can change that. Whether you have done anything that you would blame in others. So what is that part telling us? If we would behave in ways that we would not approve in other people, isn't it?
Don't do to other people we don't like others do to you.
Yeah, precisely. And whether you have done anything that you would not dare profess, what comes to us in that place?
Don't do anything wrong or just wrongs.
Precisely, that I even never considered to talk about, but internally we may know it, because a lot of things we do know what we did or do, but we don't have the courage to talk about. So it's almost like this paragraph in summary refers, roughly speaking, to develop what in terms of virtues? Would it be right in saying sincerity, honesty, be loyal to us, not to lie to us anymore? So it's really helping us to learn to be sincere, to be honest, to be loyal, so that we can develop the new aspects that come from the self level onwards.
I think also to try to learn to think about ourselves and don't need to go by what others. So that's, I think you said before, discernment, and also it's going to help the independence as well, because I'm going to start like don't be dependent to others about food or about what I've done or feedbacks from others. I'll start there asking me to do it by myself, and then trying to ask herself what have you done and what you did to grow. Even if people might think that, oh no, you have not done anything wrong. but internally I know that I did. So I don't need to agree with what others say to me, or don't need to be pleased people because I want to do something to to honor someone else. And even if I do them wrong. So come back to myself and be, I think to be awareness and to be like responsible for my own actions.
Okay, anything else? No? Then we move on to the next one. Still in the same question. Also ask, if it pleases God to call me at this moment to enter the world of spirits, where nothing is hidden, would I cover before anyone's gaze? Examine what you may have done against God, then against your neighbor, and lastly, against yourself. The answer will be either a pose for your conscience or an indication of a wrong that you must amend. So if you start from the beginning, ask if it pleases God to call me at this moment to enter the world of spirits, whether nothing is hidden, would I cover before anyone's gaze? What do we understand with that question? Referring it in our own words, what is it about? An idea? Is it helping us to first, for us to know if it pleases God, we need to understand God's laws, isn't it? Because otherwise we don't know. We may be doing good, but actually we may be going against God's law. We are studying here exactly God's law, and it's a gradual process. We won't know everything in this existence. It's impossible. But to have the openness to be engaging in learning more and more. And then also understanding that we are not a physical body. Sooner or later we are free from the physical body, from this existence, and we will be facing ourselves in the spirit when we return to the spiritual world. And then the last part is, how would be our awakening process there? Would we be regretting what we did? Would we be concerning in hiding us in what we did to others or not? Is that what the question is about? Is that making sense? Could we be concerned sometimes before dying or before disincarnate that we may look back at what we did, we may regret? Could that happen? Yes, it can, somewhat, quite often. Or even when we disincarnate later on. So what can we help us that that process can lessen? What can we do?
Being fine with self-forgiveness and responsibility.
Good. Self-forgiveness, understanding more and more that I have the faculty given by God of freedom in order for me to expand and develop it now in a responsible way, through cultivating goodness, through cultivating the virtues, to free myself from pride and selfishness, because those elements are the ones that I always resist God's invitations in order to learn to love more.
It's an interesting process because when we actually do this process of practicing self-forgiveness, it frees up some space in the mind because just you do this process, you might have the opportunity to speak to the person or not, but then just forget about it.
Yes.
But if you don't, then you carry on thinking about
You
it
carry
all
on.
the time.
You carry on, and your old talking is about that because it still is filled within. But when we sort it out, when we come to an agreement from the self and ego state onwards, or the conscious and unconscious, and we clear that, and then we can move on lighter. Yes. And it also becomes easier to learn what we need to learn. And then they carry on here saying, examine what you may have done against God. Examples, what can we do even if it is unconscious against God? Is that possible for us in this stage of evolution where we are? Can we still do wrong against God? Sorry? Stubbornness.
No, I said it happens.
It happens, okay. So in which way? If you dare to analyze in a society on earth where we are, what are examples that we as immortal beings who are brothers and sisters in humanity, children of God, but in which way could we do things which would mean against God? What are examples of ourselves or others? If we don't know about ourselves, about others.
Avoid
Thanks.
tax.
Sorry?
Avoid tax.
Avoid tax. So we are not loyal. We are dishonest. Yes.
But are we dishonest if the government is not honest? So it's being dishonest.
Sorry?
If the government itself is dishonest, if you avoid that, is that being dishonest?
I think we will always focusing the God's laws, which are the natural laws, and train ourselves within that. If the government is disloyal or if the system is dishonest or whatever it is, we will choose to carry on to be honest in the best way that we can in this stage.
Isn't being honest to yourself or to God's laws much more important than being honest to the laws of man?
I think men's laws are under God's law, as we understand, but men's laws are imperfect. God's laws are perfect, and men's laws are mutable. God's laws are immutable. For us, it is to constantly always train ourselves within God's laws and respecting men's laws, but not necessarily do everything what men's laws, who are imperfect, may be against God's law. For instance, the abortion in this country is legal, but within God's laws is a crime. It's against, because we value each life. But you are right to say, be dishonest would be one of the ways, and there are different ways that we could be dishonest. What else? Other behaviors, other examples that we could go against God, that we are reflecting as learners. Do we have other ideas?
Committing suicide.
Committing suicide again, because God gave us life and only He can take it from us when we are here, correct? And then we have the direct and the indirect suicide, which has very different examples too. Yeah. What else?
I think in a broader vision, all the vices they are against God's laws because of being against my own self.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I can bring everything in there, all the vices, because is it examples of, as you said, the suicide, I've got the direct and the indirect. So the indirect one has so many things that we even don't know that is an example of indirect suicide. Like nowadays we now know that like anger they can cause or they can cause cancer. And cancer is an example that I can die. My body can die because of cancer. So it also can be an indirect suicide because I was feeding that thought and I was feeding that emotions. So
Yes, the anger, hate, which still is very present on earth, those are indirect ways of suicide because we are consuming our vital energy which sustains our reincarnation process and therefore we disincarnate beforehand against the will of God.
But do people that commit suicide consciously kill themselves? You know, is it a conscious decision for them to take their own life?
If it's a conscious option,
Yeah, like people that commit suicide, do all of them consciously kill themselves because they cannot take it anymore? Or is it something that just happens?
I think we need to look within every spirit's experience. A lot of suicides occur because ourselves, probably in the past, went through this as well. People find it difficult to cope when they go through moments of experiences that, from a spiritual perspective, means spiritual growth. But if we are weak on the emotional and psychological or on a moral level, we may find it difficult and challenging to stay in these growing situations and experiences. For what reasons? Usually because we are coming from a materialistic viewpoint and we are coming from a reductionist view of life. I cannot stand it anymore, it's so painful, I cannot deal with it, I will die, so at least the experience is over. But in reality, it's not over. So usually there is a lot of pain behind it, but the pain is usually down also through our weaknesses in terms of vices. Because from a broader perspective, We are immortal beings. We come back through the reincarnation process, which is a process that has been organized by the benefactors that we usually participated. We knew in the spirit that it would be difficult and challenging for us to testify the new experiences that we need. But when we come back, we are in the physical body, we don't know, we don't remember that, and then the old tendencies will come through the experiences that we're facing. But the old tendency for all of us, they are coming up. The secret here is not for us to validate them anymore, it's for us to now, through the self level, almost to choose to resignate ourselves and then to strengthen ourselves from within. And understanding people have different reasons. For instance, some people find it extremely challenging if someone betrayed them or their financial situation changes suddenly. They have a higher level, then suddenly the salary is not there, and they just cannot bear that. So again, from a materialistic viewpoint, it can look challenging, but from a spiritual perspective, that we are beings who are continually living existence, we will never die. Killing the physical body will never kill the life, because all life comes from God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the reason I say that is because years ago, I had 2 years full of suicide thoughts, and I wouldn't consider myself emotionally unstable. So it was quite an education to feel the stream of, you know, uh, but knowing that you have no reason for this, and I couldn't stop it, so I had to wait until it passed. And there was education in a sense. You realize there's a very thin line between having a body and not having a body.
Yes.
So
And then
it can happen to anyone.
it can, and still we are all very vulnerable, psychologically, emotionally speaking, in other words, spiritually, all of us. This is why we are always studying and be honest with ourselves. We are not perfect beings, we are valuable beings in essence, and we are training, we have our challenges that we overcome. Another aspect that you mentioned, your experience, and surely could be our experience, could be the experience of others who are with us or connected psychically with us. From a spiritual perspective, we also have the interferences of other beings. So perhaps I may be in a situation here in a physical level that actually, if I look around on the material level, I may have a good job, I may have good money, I may have a house, and maybe everything. What is happening? Why do I have this thinking? Because we, as Jung said, who we think we are is this, and this is the unconscious. We may also bring mental patterns or emotional tendencies from the previous experiences, and also we may be interfered or suggested by other spirits who don't like us, who want us to fail again. So it's important that all of us strengthen ourselves within evaluating life and loving life, respecting life, and it's more as we change our thinking as a free choice, we get rid of the old patterns that we may bring on the unconscious level, but we also become independent of external interferences, which usually are there through. Okay? Is that making sense? Yeah? Did I go up to the end? No. Then he said, examine what you may have done against God, which we exposed some examples, and then against your neighbor. What can we do wrong against our neighbor in this stage where we are learning to become better and learning to educate ourselves according to the natural laws in the universe? What could we do against our neighbor, which is against God? Any idea? Gossiping, disrespecting, slander people behind their backs. Yes? God doesn't ask us to behave in that way. What else? Be dishonest. Our friend previously said, but be dishonest with someone, criticizing others. Take what doesn't belong to us. Manipulating people. That's quite common in the stage where we are in life. So those behaviors are not according to the divine laws or God's laws that we bring within. It's nothing outside, it's within. We are coming to connect with those real values within. Then they carry on. And lastly, against yourself. What can we do wrong against ourselves?
Procrastinate.
Procrastinating, complaining, poor me, why is that happening to me? Why do people do that to me? That is the procrastination that is showing where I'm coming from on previous experiences, which is based, we go back in the beginning where we start on pride and selfishness, that I always did what I want and I didn't invest my time in progressing in virtues. Now I'm here just complaining and I see the world and I see people in that distorted way. Okay, so now it's time for me to re-educate myself within God and to stop those patterns. Because for us as immortal beings in evolution, while we are on earth, it's normal and natural that all our old patterns do come up within the social connection, correct? Because this is the reason that the old patterns will come up, but not for us to identify and intensify them, it's for us to re-educate ourselves this time. Is that making sense? And then we carry on when they say lastly, the answers will be either repose for your conscience or an indication of a wrong that you must amend. What do we learn with the last phrase of this paragraph? There are two parts in it, isn't it? So is that a way for us to get to know ourselves in the end of the day or throughout the day? In which way? How could we reframe the phrase within our own words? An idea? So if we analyze ourselves throughout the day or the end of the day and we feel that we are in peace within, even if we did wrong, but we are willing to change, will that bring peace to our mind?
It's acknowledging the good and the bad.
Precisely.
Because I think it's part of being humble is also
Precisely.
knowing that we did something.
Humble will help you to stop complaining. Humbleness will help you to take responsibility and to change my process internally. Yes. And then, or an indication of a wrong that you must amend. How do we perceive, how do we notice that indication? Is that perceivable? How can that be perceived? How could we notice that indication? An idea? How can we notice that?
Could be through our feelings, or for some it's through thoughts, through
Okay.
reflection.
Which kind of feelings?
Like angustia,
Anguish?
Anguish, yeah.
Anguish, anger, rebelliousness. And then on a thinking level, again, complaining. That is an indication that I'm wrong with myself. Because that is not according to God's laws. He wants me to notice those patterns and stop and re-educate myself, isn't it? So we have, let's say, within our own nature, the feedbacks either if we are in the right track or if we are in the wrong one. And even if we are in the wrong, in any moment we can change ourselves. Is that making sense? Because there's nothing wrong, as you well said, in realizing our shortcomings, because we all have them. We are not less loved by God because we become aware of our shadows. Well, on the contrary, as more as we become aware and we take the responsibility to change, closer we become to God. Now we still have the next one that St. Augustine goes on. Self-knowledge is therefore the key to individual improvement. But we'll ask, how do we judge ourselves? Won't we be under the illusion of vanity, which exalts our wrongs and makes them excusable? Mice think they are simply being thrifty and foresightful, while proud individuals think they are only full of dignity. Is St. Augustine going deeper here with us? What do we think?
That's the trap.
That's the trap. Explain it to me.
Weaknesses.
Our weaknesses.
Pride,
Yeah. Yeah.
It might sound reasonable to say everything for me.
It
But I
could.
might have a good argument.
We have, and believe me, we have plenty of, because of all systems. So now you mentioned previously, learning and be willing to develop humbleness will be the best way for us. I may be wrong. Let's me check again. Let me analyze myself again. Let me observe again how I feel when I think what I think. Is that becoming light, or is that still heavy and holding back? And where I am with all of that. So as more as we go on in a humble way, that will also help us to fall less into the trap of ourselves because of the illusions as is referred here. What else comes to us? Which excuses could we have at present? Because he says, won't we be under the illusion of vanity which exalts our wrongs and makes them excusable? Which behaviors or which examples could we think of that may be excuses? Do we have ideas?
I deserve this because I have done that.
Okay, I deserve this. I deserve this treatment because I did that. So I'm really good bargaining here. Yeah. Again, manipulating the old patterns that I bring with me. So God asked me to do good, not to bargain with anything and anyone, so that I free myself from these manipulative patterns. Example. Other example, that we may give excuses for ourselves. Could I also have an excuse of saying I don't have time to do it? To think about myself?
Or I'm too young, or I'm too old.
I'm too old, too old. This is not for me. This is for younger people, yes? Or I may say I don't have time. So what is that referring to me again?
I don't want to.
I don't want to. I don't want to look within myself. When we study that process on a deeper level, usually people who are very, very busy, always working, because they are running away from themselves to do this work, self-knowledge. They fear to connect with the deep self. And yet that needs to happen for us to free ourselves from ourselves, it's not from others. So we don't need to be fearful of ourselves. Whatever we may see, whatever we may have done, God loves us all. But there is the need for us to be willing to embrace ourselves, to embrace our own history, and to take the responsibility to build the history in a different way. Any other example? Yeah? So we stay here then and carry on now. The next paragraph says, all of this is quite true, but you have a means of control that cannot deceive you. When you are indecisive as to the quality of any one of your actions, ask how you would judge it if it had been done by someone else. If you would blame it in another, it cannot be any more legitimate for you, for God does not use two measures for justice. So St. Augustine is carrying on giving us ways that helps us to reflect within the process of self-knowledge. So what in this paragraph is the main point here? That he is inviting us to think and learn. Can we become indecisive while we are in the process of self-knowledge? Very easily. Why? Why?
Because I don't have yet strong references.
Correct. We still don't have strong references on the virtuous level because let's say, trained ourselves in the opposite way. We still are quite, let's say, weak in the discernment, which again, we haven't developed the discernment in relation to what is good and bad according to God's laws. We know what is good and bad in relation to our ego, but not in relation to God's laws.
I was thinking about an experiment I saw from one psychologist. He put a group of people in a room, and only one person did not know about the experiment. And he asked the question, put the answer, and then asked everyone to write the answer. The person that didn't know about the experiment had the right answer, but everyone else had a different answer. And then the person started to question itself: is it right? Like, why everyone else has a different answer? I think this is why it's so fashionable, because even if you sometimes you know you're right, and then everyone else says it different, you might question yourself. I think for me, this being indecisive happens quite often.
And is that good or bad?
I don't know what it is, but sometimes it's so indecisive.
I know it can be very, very challenging within, but actually, when we look at it from a broader perspective, it is healthy. Because that shows already that we are better than previously, that we are more conscious than previously, because previously we didn't realize anything. Now at least we are. Nature doesn't change overnight. We need to go through it gradually. And it's not easy, it's not comfortable, I know that. But what can we do when we are indecisive? For us, as we are studying Spiritism, carry on studying. And don't rush and crush ourselves. Give time. I don't know that. Admit that. I need some more time to mature. I will read specific literature in relation to that, the subject of whatever. I will pray and ask that my benefactor may inspire me. But I will also put the effort into study more about this specific point because I'm willing to develop my own discernment. And quite often when we go and study for whatever specific point it is, because we receive the help of the benefactors, we will clarify our minds. Okay, but if you need some time to process it, that's okay as well.
I think as well on the journey, everything comes to doubt you. You know, people around you. It's like even the voices in your head. You know, there are times to see if there's doubt within you. And if you can stand in that space, then you sow the roots. And you are much stronger. Go through it. But everything will doubt you.
I think
The
as
opposite
yeah,
is something valuable.
I think as we see that we are within one of God's laws, which is the law of society, and then of course we all everyone has their own history from centuries and centuries of tendencies, and we are in the middle of all of this. And why? In order for us to learn gradually to think for ourselves in relation to the universal laws. And that is an internal movement which does not depend on external. We may feel affected while we still are quite uncertain, but as more as we develop the maturity as immortal beings within the natural laws, we become more independent of the external references, less affected. That is exactly what happens with the superior beings already. And we are moving towards that direction too.
Inner revolution.
Sorry?
Inner revolution.
Precisely. Inner revolution, precisely. Inner self-enlightenment. And in that way, we are coming to the end today of our time here. And as always, we carry on here with our final reflections and prayer. In these unique and special moments in our lives, as immortal beings, brothers and sisters in humanity, incarnate and all of those in the spiritual world who are here with us, we say thank you to the Creator of everything and everyone, our gratitude towards enlightened beings, the dear friends of all of us here, who are embracing us, helping us, inspiring us, for us to carry on within our proposal of self-knowledge, self-enlightenment, taking responsibility, which is the internal ability to choose freely, spontaneously, within the natural laws of life, to become better, within and without, choosing freely to be good with ourselves, with our neighbors, with everyone that is part in our lives, choosing to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, because we learn that we all do mistakes as we learn, and it's okay, as long as we don't keep on doing the same and make efforts to overcome them gradually. We ask the blessings of the enlightened being for all of us here. May we all choose to carry on our pathway of self-enlightenment, embracing the opportunity to learn to love ourselves, to accept ourselves as valuable beings who are learning day by day, and also learning to be more grateful in life for everything and everyone, because in the end of the day, all the experiences are positive towards our inner growth, as long as we choose to develop our inner wisdom. May